So right here on the board, we have this class opener, which is dealing with composite functions. I know it's kind of blurry when I zoom in, but we're going to use those three functions, f of x, g of x, and h of x for the following questions. And it's really this simple. You could even do most of this in your head. Number one, it says to take f of negative 2, which means plug in negative 2 into the f function. Not the g or the h, but plug in negative 2 into the f function. So if we think 2 times negative 2, that's negative 4, and negative 4 minus 1, the answer is negative 5, correct? Okay, so that's it. That's your answer, negative 5 right there. Moving on to number 2, what do? We take negative 2 and plug it inside the g function. So let's plug in a negative 2 right in there. If you need to see the work, let's plug in negative 2 where the x is at. So that's going to be a negative 2 right in there. Negative 2 squared is 4. And 4 plus 1 is your final answer, 5, for number 2. Moving on to number 3, h of 10. All you're doing is plugging in 10 into the h function. So plug in a 10 right there. 10 take away 1 is what? 9. The square root of 9 is what? 3. And 3 plus 2 is 5 again. All right, so moving on to number 4, that was from yesterday's notes. That circle is really representing g of f of negative 4. In other words, that is the same exact thing as saying g of f of negative 4. That's just a different notation. Does that make sense to everybody? It's the same exact thing, just written a little differently with different notation. Bottom line is, we're going to take the 4, plug it into f, and then get an answer, and then plug it into g. Or if you want to look at it with this notation, take the negative 4, plug it into f, then plug it into g. So let's plug in negative 4 into the f function. So negative 4 into the f function. 2 times negative 4, what's 2 times negative 4? Negative 8. And what's negative 8 minus 1? Negative 9. So we agree that the f of negative 4 in there really is negative 9. So now we could write g of negative 9, and now we could think, let's plug in negative 9 into the g function. So plugging in negative 9 into the g function, we're going to go negative 9 squared, which is positive 81, and 81 plus 1, that would be 82. So I hope we all got that answer. Let's move on to number 5. It keeps getting funner and funner, right? You start on the inside, you go with the 1, and what do? You plug it into g. So plug in 1 right here. What's 1 squared? What's 1 plus 1? 2. So you really have 2 right here. I mean, if you wanted to, you could just put a 2 right in there in place of g of 1, because g of 1 really does equal 2. So now let's take that 2 and plug it into h, which is take that 2, plug it into h. So right here, 2 take away 1 is 1. The square root of 1 is what? And 1 plus 2? 3. So when I plug in 2 into h, we really have 3. And then take that 3 and plug it into f, because you take that 3 that you got and plug it into f. So what's 2 times 3? 6 minus 1? 5. Final answer. But what I'm going to do is try to make this a little more understandable. So I plugged in at the very beginning, I plugged in g of 1. I plugged in 1 into g, and I got out 2. So it might be a good idea to write down f of h. But instead of g of 1, I want to put in that 2. And then we plugged in 2 into h, and we got out a 3. So my final one would be f of 3. And then that would be my final step, plugging in 3 into f. And then we finally got our final answer of 5. You guys with me? Okay. Moving on to the last one. So let's take f of 3. F of 3, plug it in 3 into f. So that's 2 times 3. That's 6 minus 1. What is it? So f of 3 is really 5. So check this out. Just to be clear with what we're doing, g of h of, instead of f of 3, I'm going to put what you guys just told me, You said it was 5. And now let me do h of 5. What is h of 5? Well, let's take the 5 and plug it into h. 5 take away 1 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. And 2 plus 2 takes you back to 4. So I really have g of 4. Does that make sense? Sorry about that. Let me... That prints right there. Okay, so let's find out what g of 4 is. And 4 plugged into g, that's 4 squared. That's 16. And 16 plus 1. Final answer is 17. Ta-da. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, let's move on to this other one, like number 7, 8, and 9, where I'm actually plugging in a function into a function. Notice that there is no number. I don't start with like a 3 and plug it into f and then get an answer, then plug it into h. I just have f of x inside h of x. F of x is inside h of x. Now, what does that mean? I need to take the f of x function, which is over here, this function, and plug it into my h of x function. So I highly recommend that you start by thinking of your biggest one. This guy goes inside of this guy. So let me copy this one over. I want to have the square root of x minus 1 inside the root plus 2. Now notice that I didn't write the x. Why didn't I write the x? Because I'm actually going to plug in 2x minus 1 right in that place of x. So I'm going to plug in the 2x minus 1 right in there. So I got 2x minus 1 right in there. And that's all inside the root. So what is 2x minus 1 minus 1? 2x minus 2. So you really have the root 2x minus 2, right? And on the outside, you have a plus 2. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all I could do. There's nothing else to do. You can't find the square root of that. You can't find the square root of that binomial. You can't add the outside 2 with the inside 2. You just can't do it. So that's your answer right there. Done. So if we move on to number 8, we're not going to be able to see the functions. Let me jot down those functions right above here. Give me a second. So here we go. We transferred those functions up above the board right there. And let's take a look at number 8, where we're going to plug in g of x into f of x. That's what it says here, to plug in g of x into the f of x function. So you're going to take this g of x and plug it into the f of x function. And that's simply going to be, instead of 2 times x, I'm going to put 2 times parentheses and then minus 1 on the outside. Now what belongs inside those parentheses, like we said, we're going to take in this g of x function, plug it inside there, which means we're plugging it inside those parentheses. So in here we're going to have the x squared plus 1. Let me do that. X squared plus 1. So there we have the red g of x inside the black f of x. And now all I need to do is simplify. So what could I do here? 2 times x squared, that's 2x squared. 2 times 1, that's positive 2. And don't forget about the outside minus 1. And after that, you could still combine like terms. So your final answer will be 2x squared plus 1. Because when you combine this guy with this guy, you get a 1. Any questions? No. All right, moving on. This last one's the most challenging one, I guess, because you need to take the h of x function and put it inside the g of x. You need to take, wait a minute, I'm not even seeing the complete h of x function. Sorry about that. There it is. We're going to take this binomial, the radical on the plus 2, this binomial, we're going to plug it inside the g of x function. In other words, this guy, this binomial is going to have to be squared and then add 1 at the very end. So I want to write out x squared plus 1, but I want to do parentheses squared plus 1 to be able to plug in this guy inside the parentheses. So again, parentheses squared plus 1. So I want to go parentheses squared plus 1. And let me plug in the h of x function in those parentheses, the square root of x minus 1 plus 2. the square root of x minus 1 plus 2. So there is our expression that we need to simplify. Now, what I need to do first is square that binomial, and this is where it starts getting fun, because you're going to have to write it twice. Put the plus 1 on the outside. And once you write it twice, you're going to have to distribute. So you have this square root of, or whatever that is, times that square root exact value. So when you multiply a radical with itself, the radical completely disappears, and you just end up with what's on the inside of the radical, the x minus 1. And then when I distribute that radical times 2, what am I really going to have? I'm just going to have 2 of those radical values of x minus 1. And then I'm going to distribute 2 times that radical. Once again, I'm going to have another 2 of those radical values of x minus 1. And at the very end, 2 times 2, well, that gives us a plus 4. Let's not forget about the outside plus 1 that I need to bring down. So now it's a question of combining like terms. So the middle 2 terms that are in blue, those guys will combine with each other, and we will get a positive 4 of those square root values that are x minus 1. And let me also bring down or combine the numbers with the numbers. I'm going to combine this minus 1 right here with this plus 1 right there, which would totally cancel out. And I'm going to bring down the 4. So I'm going to put the plus 4 down here at the very end. And I'm also going to bring down this x right here, right in front. And this is our final answer, guys. X plus 4, square root of x minus 1 plus 4. I hope that kind of helps. Let's move on. See if we could all squeeze it into one 15-minute video. So moving on to number 10, saying to add f of x and g of x. Those are easy, right? All you're going to do is write down your f of x function, which is 2x minus 1, and you're going to add it with the g of x function. So once again, we have 2x minus 1, and we're going to add it. We're going to go plus the g of x function, which happens to be a x squared plus 1. Combine like terms, x squareds first, right in order. Then you have the 2x, which is positive. And then the minus 1 here and this plus 1 completely cancel out. So that's your answer when you add f of x with g of x. And for our final one, we're going to multiply. And this is just a notation. F g of x is the same thing as saying f of x times g of x. And let me write those down. F of x is 2x minus 1. G of x is x squared plus 1. So we have the f of x in black, the g of x in red. Let's distribute 2x times x squared. That'll give you a 2x to the third. 2x times 1, that's positive 2x. Negative 1 times x squared is a negative x squared. And negative 1 times positive 1 is a negative 1. And there's nothing to combine. There are no like terms, but you could rewrite it in the appropriate order. 2x to the third minus x squared plus 2x minus 1 at the very end. And that's your order, your cubic polynomial in standard form. That's in order. That would be your answer. All right, guys. Half of the test is going to be on this video right here. Very similar to it. The other half of the test is going to be from piecewise functions, which is from the previous 3 videos that were posted last week. I believe it was May the 6th. So make sure you watch this video over and over and the previous 3 videos that were posted Friday, May 6th, which was on piecewise functions. Then you should be ready for Friday's test.